guys, I just muted everyone. So if you have any question, right, just unmute yourself or just type your question in the chat window. If you have any audio issues.
Hey Raghu, this is Smita here.
Hey Smita.
Can you hear me today?
Yeah, I'm able to hear you perfectly.
Oh, good, great. I just connected my headphones, so I thought let me just try talking.
Cool, yeah, good.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. So, yeah. So, in the previous session we have seen, right, how to create users and how to customize your home page. So, in today's session, let's start working on your security model, guys. So, how you are going to maintain security, what are the different frameworks with respect to the security in your SuccessFactors system, what are the advantages and what kind of flexibility they are going to provide to us, and which one is going to be available with your talent management system, which one is going to be available with your employee central module. Those things I'm going to discuss today. See, with respect to your security, at a high level, you have two different security models or framework that we are going to use or that are available in your SuccessFactors system, guys. So one is your traditional or administrative privileges, or they call it as administrative domain as well, and the other one is like a role-based permission, guys. So with respect to your administrative privileges, how it is going to look like and what is your role-based permissions. See, administrative privileges or administration domain framework is the very old framework, and that came along with the SuccessFactors when SAP acquired them, guys. And the role-based permission framework, the security framework role-based permission, which is also called as RBP, is the latest security framework from SAP SuccessFactors, and this framework was completely designed by SAP after they took over the SuccessFactors company, guys. So that's the history about that. And which one is like a superior when compared to the other one is like your role-based permission is going to be far superior, and it has a lot of flexibility where it can control at a field level access, whether the field should be editable by the user or the field should be read only to the users. So those kind of things you will be able to control using your role-based permission framework. But whereas administrative privileges or administrative domain framework is not as flexible as RBP, but still it provides the access. It can provide access control to the different things of your talent management system, guys. So where you are going to activate, whether you are going to use your administrative privileges or role-based permission is like in your provisioning system, guys. Let me show you what are those switches, and then I'll move on to the instance and I'll show you how to configure your security. So if you go to your SuccessFactors provisioning system, go to your home page. From your home page, click on your company settings, guys. Under your company settings, you see with respect to the administrative domain, you see something called administration. Give me a second, guys. Let me reduce my resolution because it doesn't fit into my window here. Okay. Yeah. You can see here, you see two different switches here. Select permission model, whether you want to use your default permissions, which is nothing but your administrative domain, or if you want to use role-based permission framework. So which one you are interested in using with respect to the security framework? So this will tell you, or this will configure which kind of framework that you're going to use in your instance, guys. And let's say right now you are using your default framework, which is going to be your administrative domain. And with administrative domain, right, how the system is going to look like. Let me show you right now as we have activated the administrative domain, right, how the system is going to look like, or where you are going to configure the security, or where you are going to restrict the authorization to the users is, and how it is going to work.
Raghu, sorry to interrupt. Can you just go back to the provisioning system? Our system was actually freezed. Actually, we couldn't.
Oh yeah, no worries. Yeah, just keep searching for your administrative domain, and you will be able to find that, guys. You can see here right now I just activated this thing, right? Are you able to see this, guys? Hello?
Yes, Raghu. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So with this thing, it is like your administrative domain, right? So with how your administrative domain is going to work, let me tell you like how it is going to work. Then I will show you how to configure the permissions, guys. So in administrative privileges, we are just talking exclusive to administrative privileges here, guys. You see, administrative privileges got two different layers of security, guys. One is like default permissions, and another is like admin permissions or admin privileges. So how it works is like, you have to, in any system, in any organization, you have to configure the default permissions, and these default permissions are going to be provided, or this is default permissions is the place where you are going to configure the minimum things, and these default permissions are going to be inherited by all the users. Whatever the user record you are going to create in the SuccessFactors instance, right? That record is going to inherit the permission. The default permissions will come from the settings, whatever you keep under the default permissions. So by default, they are going to be assigned to all the users. And the admin permissions is the place where you are going to exclusively, you have to go to that particular place, and you have to select the users and grant the access to those users, guys. So you have two different layers. One is your default permissions, and over your default permissions, admin privileges or admin permissions are there. And where you are going to configure, like how your system with a admin privileges or administrative domain security framework is going to behave is like, you see in this system, you see set user permissions, right? Under user permissions, you can see here administrative privileges, and you see default user permissions. So these two relate to the two different things that I told to you under the administrative privileges, guys. And what is going to have in these two things, right? Let me show you what are the default permissions, what you are going to configure in that. It is just a checkbox or configuration that you need to do under default user permissions. Whatever you are going to configure here under the default permissions is the one that all the users are going to inherit, guys. By default, they will have this access. Usually, like in any organization, how they configure is like, these default permissions they will keep as minimum as possible, guys. And all the employees of your organization are going to get these permissions, guys. That is how they operate, guys. And over default permissions, you have admin privileges. Anyhow, admin privileges are going to be like a case by case basis. The required users are going to be selected, and based on the requirement, they are going to be granted with the admin privileges, guys. Just a second, guys. Archana has question. So these privileges can be granted both via provisioning and instance. No. Archana, privileges are not going to be granted from your provisioning system. Your provisioning system will tell you what kind of framework you can use, whether you are interested in admin privileges or you are interested in using the role-based permission framework. That's it. Your instance is the place where you are going to configure the actual privileges.
Raghu, I'm not too clear. So what exactly are we doing in the provisioning then?
See, in the provisioning, you have two different models, right? Security models. You can see here on my screen, use the default permission model or use the role-based permission model. So what are these two things? These two things are the security framework, right? Two different frameworks.
Okay.
So you are configuring in the provisioning system stating that my organization wants to use the default permission model, or no, my organization wants to use the role-based permission model. That is what you are going to configure in the provisioning system.
But we would be doing both anyways, right? I mean, for certain users, it would be the default, and for certain admin users, we would be using the role-based model as well, right? So we would have to go back and do this toggle switch again.
No, it doesn't work in that fashion. See,
Okay.
these two are two independent things. Your admin privileges or administrator domain framework and role-based permission framework are two different security frameworks. If you are going to use one, you will not be able to use the other one.
Okay.
And so whatever you are going to use it, right? How you are going to configure the security framework is going to be specific to that particular, or the way we configure the administrative domain framework is different from your role-based permission framework.
Okay, so if I'm understanding correctly, when you talk about role-based, you're talking more about like managers or department heads or something, and whatever permissions they have. Is it something like that?
Yeah. It will be more similar in line to that, but we haven't worked on yet that. I'm here to explain you that, Archana. Like just yeah.
All right.
And these permissions are going to be configured by SuccessFactors consultant only, guys.
Okay.
Yeah, there is no security consultant, there is no basis consultant for us. The consultant, the SuccessFactors consultant is the one who is going to configure that. So in your, like right now, we are just concentrating on forget about role-based permission framework, guys. You have two different frameworks, you know that now. And whatever we are right now doing is going to be like administrative privileges. So how you are going to configure or how you are going to maintain your security in the administrative domain security framework. That is what we are going to start work now. See, again in your administrative security framework, you have two different layers. One is your default permissions, another is like admin permissions. Those two things needs to be configured by you. So the default permissions is like a one-time configuration again, and which is going to be done in your instance, guys. The moment you select the framework, the job with respect to the provisioning system is done. You have to come back to your instance and you have to configure these two things, the default permissions and the admin permissions or admin privileges. So default permissions is like just a set of configuration that you are going to do one time, and these security configuration, whatever you did, are maintained under the default permissions, is going to be inherited by all the employee records or all the user records that you are going to create in your instance, guys. So and I'm telling you, the best practice is like configure as minimum as possible in your default permissions, guys. Don't grant any sort of admin or any sort of configuration security things in your default permissions, because say if you are going to configure your default permissions such stating that go ahead and configure compensation management, or go ahead and configure your goal management module. All the employees who are going to be created are going to acquire the permissions based on the default permissions, right? Even they will be able to configure the compensation or goal management. But ideally that is not the case, right? Only the consultant should be able to configure that. So that is the reason, don't grant any additional access with respect to your default permissions, guys. Keep that as minimum as possible so that all the users are going to have that minimum security by default. And whenever any consultant says there might be 10 consultants who need admin privileges in your organization, yes, only for those consultants you can go ahead and provide the admin privileges to them so that they will be able to configure the required module or the corresponding module for which they are responsible, guys. Is it clear, guys, so far, at least like whatever I told to you?